freedom of the media, modern challenges and threats. We have the pleasure to have at the table Mrs. Maria Zakharova, who is official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, the speaker of Mr. Lavrov, Mrs. Muret Zaki. She is editor-in-chief of Bilan Magazine, Swiss economic magazine, and a prominent journalist here in Switzerland. Mrs. Vera Kolesina is press secretary of the Sputnik News Agency in Paris. She's also speaking French, I guess, a little bit. Yes. Okay. And Jean Musy is also a prominent colleague. He's president of the Foreign Press Association in Switzerland and Liechtenstein, and also editor-in-chief and founder of Radio Zone with an S, because there is many zones, not only one. Exactly. So thanks to our speaker to be here to share some views about freedom of the media, which is an important topic for us journalists and also for you in the audience. As you know, since a few, not decades, but a few years, we have, how can I say, a stiffening of the media landscape and also of the media coverage of news with a kind of information war. I speak about that in the magazine of the Press Club I will give you. We published 2 years ago. And I think that's important to have not only mainstream views. Mainstream views exist everywhere, exist in Russia and China, but also in the United States, in Europe and Switzerland. And that's important to have a kind of plurality of voices, diversity of the media ecosystem. And I think that's important too. And here in the Press Club, we welcome lots of people coming from all around the world, from Africa, Middle East, Arabic countries, Asia, and we try to preserve this diversity of opinions and visions of our world. So before to give you the floor, I would like to ask you to sign our golden book, just a signature. Maybe I got a pen if it is working. Voilà. I give you also a little souvenir of the club and also cartoons we published for your collection, or if you have time to read. Jean, tu connais ou bien? Je t'en redonne volontiers. Bon, ok. Ok. And now I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Zakharova for introducing the topic, and after we will exchange between the speakers and with the audience. So Maria, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much for this brilliant opportunity to talk directly. I'll do my best.
No, it's okay, it's okay. Oui, mais ça va venir.
I hope you won't regret.
No, it's okay.
Now it's better.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this great opportunity to talk directly to MediaCorp based here in Geneva. Of course, we are trying hard to be very open and very transparent in what we're doing in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Russia and other governmental structures. We're holding briefings, press conferences, making interviews with each and every representative of ministry, our ambassadors, our diplomats all over the world. So we have lots of foreign correspondents based in Moscow, but this is really great opportunity to come here and to talk to those who are based here in the middle, in the center, in the heart of Europe. And thank you very much. I think I will do it that way. I will stress some points which is really very important for us. I won't talk globally on all issues which are on the table of today's world international information agenda, because we won't have that much time to talk it over. But I will stress and point out those things, issues and matters which really are of matters of our concrete interest, and not only interest, but observation and importance, great importance. So first, I want to talk about a very important and very serious issue. We have to conclude that because of intensification of political contradictions, increasing tensions in international relationship, and more probably systematic crisis in international relationship, that information environment is turning into arena of intensified confrontation. Most concerning for us is that actual processes in the Western countries, actually we call it, the collective West, we call it. We have the specific title or specific name in Russia, a collective West. I actually hate to say that, but this is the term from the Cold War period, when we were pointing to each other and making such, I don't know, names or nicks like collective East or communist countries, collective West. But this is the reality of our days, that we are to give another birth to all these terrible words. But somehow they are already present in our vocabulary. And when I'm talking about I'm talking not about Russia, Russian media, I'm talking about international media and international sphere. So most concerning for us are the actual processes in the Western world, Western countries, where against the background of anti-Russian hysteria clearly has established a political trend of campaigns against Russian media. Actually, that was upside down story when I can recall time about 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when so-called collective West was trying to protect the freedom of speech, the freedom of journalism, and struggle with Russia. And Russia was trying to defend itself. But now we have an absolutely upside down story when Russia is trying to support and to struggle for independence of the media, to protect the journalists which are working all over the world, Russian journalists, of course. So, it's like actually a thriller, because we're living the same time, but we have absolutely different approaches from the same countries to the same things within 10, 15, 20 years. In the United States of America and in EU countries, attempts are being made to denigrate Russian media, mass media, and limit their activities in violating their principles of media freedom and access to information for all people. For example, I will give you one example. France, the French government consistently and systematically implements policies of restrictions against Russian media. We have representative of Sputnik France, Vera Kolesina. I think she will tell you about it in more details, because we are, as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, receiving letters from Russian media outlets and from Russia Today, Sputnik, VGTRK, it's Russia State Television, asking us to do something to protect their journalists working abroad. In this context, limits against media are also promoted not only at the national, but also at the regional and international level. This is the first topic and point I just want to stress. The second one, trying to justify restrictions against the media outlets, Russian in the first place. I just give you only one example, but we have not dozens and not hundreds. We have, I think, dozens of thousands of these examples all over the world. But I can just assure you that France, unfortunately, is one of the first places. What we are hearing from the French government, even French president, about Russian media, it's unbelievable, actually unbelievable. And probably two more examples. We sent one diplomatic note that was about more than a month ago to the French embassy in Moscow, asking just to clarify some situation with their statements. I mean, with the statements of the French president addressed to the Russian media outlets, Russia Today and Sputnik, because he, according to the media reports, accused them in propaganda and so on and so on. And we sent a diplomatic note just to understand, was it his personal position? Was it the governmental position of France? And just to clarify this issue, we had nothing back from the French side, just nothing back. They can accuse, but they cannot prove their words. And the second example, which is, I think, the brightest one I have, about a year ago, when the Catalonia thing was on the table, we heard the absolutely same things from some Spanish representatives of Spanish government, some Spanish politicians accusing Russian media in being involved in some domestic things happening in Spain, in Catalonia. And that, I think, that was about 6 or even 8 months ago. We sent another diplomatic note to the Spanish embassy in Moscow with a very direct and very clear question. We asked to send anything from Russia Today, Sputnik, other Russian media materials, articles, reports, which can be accused being propaganda, or pieces of news which are fake news, or something that can be marked as an invasion or a possible invasion into domestic policy. That was 8 or 7 months ago. We received nothing from Spain. Just nothing, just zero answer. And we pose this question not because we want to troll them. Absolutely not. It's not about trolling. It's about being honest with each other. If you have something on the table, if you have something to accuse us or Russian media, please be precise. Present something. Or we can accuse you that you are producing fake news and you are performing propaganda. So this another topic, trying to justify restrictions against the media outlets. Russian in the first place, as I stressed, local authorities more and more often build an image of an external enemy, like in the Cold War, or pursue the fake news. This is which has become a fig leaf for legitimating and discrimination against unwanted journalists and combating alternative views. Today we can observe how this policy is being conducted, unfortunately, by EU, by Brussels, and structures which are controlled by Brussels. Under the pretext of struggle against the disinformation, fake news, urgent need to protect Western democracy or democracies all over the world, such initiatives are being developed de facto for strengthening the regulation of the information environment, and so that this the freedom of speech would look and the possible control under freedom of speech look legitimate in the eyes of Western public. What is more, in Brussels, we can hear today loud and clear who is being considered as the main object of this attack. For instance, I will pose another example. The European Parliament adopted resolution with recommendations for the Council of the European Union and for the High Representative of the Union for Foreign Affairs, Mrs Mogherini, for strategic communications of the European Union aimed at, this is the direct quote, countering the propaganda. Among other recommendations, there is a following, another direct quote, to increase awareness about disinformation campaigns carried out by the Russian Federation, which are the major resource of disinformation in Europe. Come on, guys, are you serious? Russian Federation is the major resource of the disinformation in Europe. I just posed 2 examples, and you can check it with France and Spain. We send them the request to present us something. Do you know how many such direct notes, letters, proposals, requests we send or set to our colleagues in United States and EU countries, their ministers of foreign affairs, their ambassadors and representatives? We did it hundreds of times and we received just 0 back. They're just accusing with 0 evidence or 0 proving materials. The third thing I want to stress, most of all, we are concerned about the situation with the media freedom in Ukraine, of course. Probably this is really serious. You know, we have. I just look at the people who are laughing. I'm not think that. No, this is something we can laugh about. We have our colleague. Probably it is your colleague as well. It's Mr. Vyshinsky. And they're laughing as well. Are you from Ukraine?
From France.
Ah, you're from France, of course. That is funny. I got it. Just Mr. Vyshinsky spent more than 7 or 8 months being in prison. He's not a terrorist. He did nothing wrong, just nothing wrong. He was captured just as journalist. And now people who are presenting France media is laughing. About what? He's your colleague. And actually, all the structures and all the NGOs all over the world are struggling to support their colleagues, but not laughing at them. And you're laughing. And this is the situation.
Madam, since you have addressed me, I would like to...
Please,
I mean...
No, you just leave to speak, please. Don't push the button.
Well, Madam has addressed me, so I would like to answer.
Yes, you can answer after.
Okay. I'd like to be the first to speak then. Thank you.
Just please don't laugh, because it's about the human being who is suffering and who is your colleague, and we're talking about freedom of speech. So this is the matter. And I just want to stress one more time that Kirill Vyshinsky, the editor-in-chief of the RIA Novosti Ukraine news portal. Another thing I want to stress.
We have to be short.
Yeah, I will, of course. As to the Russian Federation, will always remain strongly committed to the fundamental principles of the freedom of press and expression that are joined in the international law as well as in Russian constitution. We are really strongly convinced, and we really did a lot within, I think, last 15 years to make our domestic and international policy really understandable and really transparent. We're holding lots of media events. We are in very strong and real cooperation with OSCE structures. We are answering their questions, and we are asking them lots of questions to support and to help us in resolving some problems. We are looking forward to organize in Moscow this year, probably that will be summer, in cooperation with Mr. Desir, who is the High Representative of OSCE, a special conference of freedom of speech in Russia, and you're all invited. We will manage with the date and the concrete location, and we will publish all these materials. And so we will be happy to meet you there. Another thing, it's also not funny. It's a Crimea issue. 2 days ago, that was a 5 years anniversary. And actually, one of the part of today's conference was the probable, not the presentation, but the real conversation with Crimean journalists, which did not come, not because of Russia and Kremlin who did not want them and who did not allow them to come, but because of the visa restrictions we have and we faced from international Western society according to the Crimean people. So they still cannot get Schengen visas just to come to EU and to talk directly. And I want to stress that these are not the people and these are not the journalists who present, you know, Moscow or Russian governmental position who were inserted as journalists in Crimea in our days. No, they were living in Crimea for decades. They are just real Crimean people who want to talk to you directly. They want to address you directly, and they still do not have this possibility. Within 5 years, they're not allowed to come to, for example, UN. They're not allowed to come directly to other European EU structures like EU, like European Council. They're just not allowed. They're really not allowed even to send their messages via internet or just to send disc with their statements, just to be heard directly in the Western audiences. And this is, I think, something to be really discussed. Because if we have a possibility to read and to hear dozens or thousands of statements about what is going on in Crimea in our days from officials all over the world, probably it's the right time to give the floor to Crimean people. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So thank you, Mrs. Zakharova, for exposing your views. It was good to hear you, to have your point of view. Now I would like to give the floor to Miret Zaki. Just, I know you come from Egypt, so you have also a broad vision about press media freedom, not only in Switzerland, but everywhere. Please, Miret, yes, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Guy. Governments lie. This is a fact that is true everywhere throughout history, in many epochs, and every journalist should know it. Every real journalist knows that governments lie. The thing is that governments lie everywhere, not just in some areas of the world, and in others they are perfectly transparent and democratic. I've been 20 years in journalism in Switzerland, and my father has practiced journalism during 67 years before he died last week in Cairo. Nabil Zaki, he was started as a dissident under the King Farouk in Egypt, and then he criticized Nasser. He was more radical in his views than Nasser, then criticized Sadat. He was in prison, he was exiled. For me, journalism can only be a counterpower journalism. It cannot be anything else. So we must be able to criticize governments. But this is not really possible anywhere today. And there are two distinct problems in my view. In places like Russia, like Egypt, like other countries in Latin America or Asia, we don't really have freedom of expression or freedom of journalism, freedom of opinion, and freedom of debate and freedom of speech. But in our democracies, which I know very well here for having being grown up here, we have the freedom, but we're not using it. We're not using it because we claim that we are ideologically unbiased, although we are, of course, we are biased. When the Iraq war was about to break in 2003, I was at Le Temps newspaper, the reference newspaper here, and I very quickly noticed that it was very difficult to have a debate on whether we support the Iraq war or not, because if you were at the political section, the international section, or at the economic section, you had to support the Iraq war. It was very obvious that you were going to adopt the script of the NATO or Western governments or big powers or Anglo-Saxon or the US, or it was too obvious for me, and I didn't see why we shouldn't have a diversity of opinion. But that was only the start, the beginning, because it was the same issue for Syria, the same issue for Libya, the same problem for Venezuela now. There was anti-Russian bashing all the time, especially in Anglo-Saxon media, anti-China, and this couldn't be qualified as objective. I mean, I don't believe in objectivity in our press here. So I always had this debate with colleague journalists. Why aren't we capable of criticizing our own governments? Why are we always ranging ourselves with our government, even in France, where we're noticing nowadays that there is a sort of coterie within the French press, where they are not very much capable of taking a step back and looking at the Gilets jaunes, the yellow vests phenomenon, with some distance. We are also at the epoch where we have Julian Assange being a fugitive, like Chelsea Manning being threatened all the time. That should mean what? That the authors of the Watergate should have been fugitives nowadays? No, we really have some preoccupation issues here that we should take very seriously and have some more self-criticism. I was never like Guy Metton, always defending the diversity of opinions and ideologies in the Western world. It is not necessary that we should be the enemies of Iran, the enemies of Venezuela. I mean, we should have a diversity, plurality of views if we want to give lessons to people like Russians or Chinese, but we are giving lessons. We are giving lessons to those countries, to their freedom of speech, and we are totally lacking it. And I believe that this very issue makes it very important for us journalists to read the press from everywhere in the world for our hygiene, intellectual hygiene. We need to do this. We cannot just shut out any ideologies that we are not agreeing with, like reading Sputnik news in France was helpful in the yellow vests issues. I like to have these different angles. It reassured me to see that I had, maybe things that were missed out by the French press. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm also putting myself in the same basket as a business journalist here. There are certain dogmas you're supposed to adopt. There are things you're not supposed to question ever. I never agreed with this. I told you that my culture came from a father journalist who was born in 1933 and who, even in a country like Egypt, very centralized, very hostile to total freedom of press, tried always to be the counter-power, the countervailing power, because this is absolutely key to democracy, and I don't believe that even Western journalists are doing their best to defend this journalism today. Now, I need to say something else also about Russia and countries that are under some sort of attack or bad image, maybe for good reason, but not only. If you are a country like that, I can take Egypt as an example. I know my country best. if you are under attack, and we are in a period of info war, and there are like small agencies like Psy Group, maybe you read the very interesting investigative reports that came out on Psy Group, this Israeli agency that worked in the US and pitched the Trump campaign in order to try to reverse opinion. They tell you, we change your views, we can reverse the opinion, we can make any opinion reverse and be the contrary of what they really are able to change perceptions. This is what they work at. So those little agencies are really now flourishing. There are so many of them. You pay them some $100,000 and they can create a campaign for you to change reality, simply. I mean, throughout social networks, but not only. They can put ads in the streets, everywhere, on TV, on buses, everywhere, and perception on any topic you need, any political or business topic, can be changed. This is also a practice that has been very old. Even hedge fund people in the trading world of finance used to lead a campaign against a certain company, which was fragile at the moment. They can lead a campaign against it and propager, spread, thank you, a bad reputation on it so that the share price goes down and then they can short sell it and buy it for very cheap and earn enormous money with this. These are very ancient practices. I think even in antiquity we had this form of propaganda. So coming back to our topic, if I'm an authoritarian government between brackets and I'm accused of being hostile to freedom of speech, what am I to do if those agencies come in my country, try to create unrest, demonstrations, try to foment coups, coup d'etat, things like that. This is real. This is not conspiracy theory. This is very real. I've studied American foreign policy at the American University in Cairo back then, and it was very obvious that this modus operandi in Latin America in the 70s and the 80s and then in the Middle East is very present, that you have governments intervening in countries to foment unrest, opposition. Even historical opposition will be taken and inflamed in order to become violent, armed, and it can be financed, it can be trained. We know all this. We have this information. But our press here tends to cover these issues. They will minimize these issues. But if I'm an authoritarian government, actually I am authoritarian because I need to keep my country united. It isn't a great justification. I agreed about the limits of this argumentation, that I'm killing democracy in my country, I'm too authoritarian, I'm too tight. General al-Sisi in Cairo is not a democratic man, a democratarian. He isn't. But what he says, his argument is that his country is all the time being threatened by external forces, and this is not untrue, destabilizing forces trying to topple him, trying to change the opinion in the public. What do you do when you're, imagine yourself for a second at the head of a country that external powers are trying to destabilize. What would you do? Let us think about this for a moment. So that was a point I wanted to bring here, to say that you cannot always let total freedom, because some external powers can use it in order to destabilize your country, and this is true, this is real, this exists. So my real message here is to say, my wish is for Western journalists to show the example by not systematically adopt government scripts. They absolutely need to take some distance. Their first target of criticism should be government and nothing else. They are not here to be the communication agents of any government whatsoever. And if we can hold this position, then we can start giving lessons to other parts of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mirette, for your views. Now I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Kolesina from Sputnik News Paris. Yes, she has an experience on the field in France.
Yes.
No, you can keep the microphone, it's okay.
Okay. Well, as the French language is the language of diplomacy, I hope you will excuse me if I switch to the French language, especially so we are here in Geneva. Bon, je dois avouer que... Oui.
Il y a une traduction, Yuri traduit en russe, si jamais traduire en russe vous fera l'interprétation. Voilà. Maria connaît un peu le français, mais vous can hear if you need Russian language. Ok, à vous. Je vous laisse continuer.
Je suis très heureuse de pouvoir m'exprimer devant vous ici à Genève aujourd'hui, parce que malheureusement, aujourd'hui en France, il est devenu quasiment impossible pour Sputnik France, que je représente ici devant vous aujourd'hui, quasiment impossible de se défendre contre toutes sortes d'accusations infondées auxquelles nous faisons face, notre agence fait face depuis maintenant plus de 2 ans. Et le paradoxe, surtout, consiste dans le fait que, selon les récents rapports de statistiques entrepris par une entreprise américaine, je souligne, l'indépendance et l'objectivité du rapport, le rapport entrepris par une entreprise Comscore qui plaçait Sputnik France parmi les top 3 médias étrangers consultés en France. Autrement dit, ce qui nous place, Sputnik France, juste derrière les agrégateurs comme Huffington Post, Yahoo Huffington Post et MSN News, qui cependant ne produisent pas de contenu exclusif, contrairement à Sputnik France. Voilà, pour vous donner une idée de chiffres, j'ai vu hier que notre site a été consulté par presque 1 million d'utilisateurs uniques. C'était hier, les chiffres d'hier. Voilà, donc en très peu de temps, nous avons réussi à concurrencer les médias locaux, nationaux, français. Malheureusement, cette concurrence est perçue aujourd'hui comme très menaçante par nos collègues français et par la majorité aussi au pouvoir. Mais je vais revenir à cette question de concurrence un peu plus tard, mais tout d'abord, j'aimerais faire un petit tour de nos péripéties que nous vivons depuis 2 années. Qu'est-ce qui nous est reproché au juste? Je vais citer entre autres ceci. La diffusion de contre-vérités infamantes et de rumeurs. Bon, ben, je cite le président Macron, en l'occurrence. L'absence d'approche contradictoire dans le traitement des sujets. Ce sont les paroles du porte-parole du gouvernement français, M. Griveaux. Et le dernier scoop en date, l'ingérence russe dans la radicalisation du mouvement contestataire des Gilets jaunes que nous avons évoqué tout à l'heure. Avant de m'attarder sur ces dernières accusations, j'aimerais remonter un peu dans le temps et évoquer l'origine en fait, de cette animosité envers Sputnik France. Cette animosité générale, elle trouve son origine dans la période des présidentielles de 2017, alors qu'une autre rédaction de Sputnik International, s'est permis, entre guillemets, de citer un élu français, M. Nicolas Duic, qui supposait en anglais, donc ces paroles étaient publiées en anglais, je répète par Sputnik International, une autre rédaction qui n'a rien à voir avec Sputnik France. Et donc le député de l'Assemblée nationale, qui était M. Duic à l'époque, avançait une idée que le candidat Macron était soutenu par un riche lobby gay. La citation. Alors, pour vous mettre un peu dans le contexte et comprendre la différence entre les rédactions, Sputnik diffuse en 32 langues partout dans le monde et nous avons des bureaux, des filiales, des rédactions dans une vingtaine de pays. Donc confondre Sputnik International et le travail de Sputnik France, c'est comme si, par exemple, on refusait l'accréditation des correspondants de France 24 en Algérie, par exemple, sous prétexte que la rédaction de France 24 à Paris donnait trop de parole à l'opposition algérienne sur les plateaux télévisés parisiens. Voilà, c'est un peu pour que vous compreniez la différence entre les rédactions et d'où est née en fait cette animosité dont je parlais tout à l'heure. Ceci étant dit, la toute première accusation à l'encontre de Sputnik France, l'accusation publique, je souligne, est venue non pas de la part du président Macron, mais de la part de M. Richard Ferrand, qui était à l'époque des présidentielles le secrétaire général du parti En Marche. Et donc M. Ferrand, lors d'une interview sur un plateau de France 2, a affirmé, sans aucun fondement, que Sputnik France diffusait une rumeur comme quoi, soi-disant, le candidat Macron aurait séjourné lors de son séjour au Liban aux frais des contribuables français. Ce qui était complètement faux, et vous pouvez le constater en vérifiant les articles de Sputnik de l'époque. Donc Sputnik France n'a jamais publié de telles rumeurs. Donc là, j'aimerais faire un petit aparté, on va dire, puisqu'on parle toujours de M. Richard Ferrand. Je dois souligner que les accusations qu'il continue d'ailleurs à avancer à notre rencontre, ne concernent pas que Sputnik France. Je veux vous rappeler cet incident, ou plutôt l'indignation de l'ancien maire de Genève, M. Guillaume Barazone, qui avait demandé des excuses à M. Richard Ferrand suite à son intervention un peu malheureuse pendant les débats à l'Assemblée nationale en juillet 2018. Je vais me permettre de citer les paroles de M. Ferrand qui parlait du système de référendum helvétique dans les termes suivants. Les thèmes soumis au référendum en Suisse sont très souvent le fait de clics affairistes et de quelques lobbyistes démasqués. Bon, il faut dire que Monsieur Barazone avait demandé des excuses à M. Richard Ferrand, qui est devenu le président de l'Assemblée nationale par la suite. Il est actuellement. 3 heures plus tard, après cette demande par un tweet interposé, M. Richard Ferrand répondait ceci. « Je demande formellement avoir pensé ou tenu ces propos. » Plus encore, l'ancien maire de Genève, M. Ferrand demandait à l'ancien maire de Genève d'arrêter de propager les fake news. Bon, n'en déplaise pas à M. Ferrand, les archives de l'Assemblée nationale prouvent le contraire, avec une vidéo à l'appui que vous pouvez facilement trouver en ligne. Rappelons par ailleurs, un passant, que M. Ferrand, c'était l'auteur de la proposition de la loi relative à la lutte contre la propagation des fake news ou de la manipulation d'informations. Je dois dire que cette loi a suscité des débats vraiment houleux à l'Assemblée nationale. Le projet de ce texte a été rejeté à 2 reprises par le Sénat. La loi, néanmoins, a été votée en décembre dernier. Je ne vais pas m'arrêter sur les dispositions juridiques de ce texte. Je vais juste dire qu'elle est perçue par beaucoup de représentants du milieu juridique, politique, enfin des représentants de la société civile. Cette loi est perçue comme une censure d'État, voire liberticide, ou tout simplement inutile, puisqu'il il existe déjà une autre loi relative à la presse, qui date de 1881, et qui cadrait déjà le délit de la propagation d'une fausse nouvelle. Voilà. Tout à l'heure, je parlais des accréditations. Cette fois-ci, je vais m'attarder un tout petit peu sur nos problèmes relationnels avec le pouvoir dans ce domaine-là. Bon, il faut dire que depuis le jour de l'inauguration du président Macron, l'accès au palais de l'Élysée nous est totalement réservé. Les exemples sont nombreux. Le dernier, assez cocasse, date, il est très, très frais, et il date paradoxalement du jour de l'organisation de la réception à l'Assemblée nationale par les députés du pouvoir, du parti majoritaire, de la réception qui était consacrée à l'occasion de la journée internationale des droits de la femme. Je veux décrire une situation un peu cocasse. Donc notre journaliste, une femme, enfin, c'est normal pour l'occasion, se présente avec une invitation à l'événement à l'Assemblée nationale. Elle passe toutes les vérifications nécessaires et arrive avec les autres journalistes, femmes, pour écouter les ambassadrices de tout du monde entier au sujet, voilà, qui ne devrait fâcher le pouvoir, en tout cas, à ce moment-là. Et donc, vous pouvez imaginer que notre journaliste a été prié de quitter les lieux juste en étant sur le seuil de la porte de la salle de la réception. Donc, c'était assez inattendu, enfin, assez inélégant comme geste. Alors, malheureusement, donc, la volonté d'exclure nos journalistes lors des conférences de presse pour suivre les élections européennes a été récemment officialisée par le porte-parole du gouvernement, M. Griveaux, qui, lors d'une interview, a justifié sa décision en termes suivants. Je vais me permettre de le citer parce que c'est assez éloquent. Je n'accepte pas d'avoir face à moi, dans la salle de presse de l'Élysée, des gens qui relaient abondamment une fake news aussi grave que de faire croire que l'attaque chimique sur des enfants en Syrie était une mise en scène. En leur interdisant l'accès, je suis en paix avec moi-même. Je n'ai aucun problème d'éthique. Bon, le seul hic, c'est que l'argument de M. Griveaux a peu de poids depuis le témoignage du producteur de la BBC chargé de la Syrie, qui a mené une enquête pendant 6 mois et qui avait affirmé sur son compte Twitter il y a quelques semaines que les scènes filmées après cette attaque présumée de moins le 7 avril 2018 était une parfaite mise en scène. Voilà, donc un fake sur un fake, ça devient un peu too much, comme disent les anglo-saxons. Vous avez bientôt fini ? Oui, quelques mots supplémentaires. Voilà, j'aimerais saluer pourtant le travail de nos collègues français. Ils ne sont pas tous à suivre et à reproduire l'amalgame du genre Spoutnik égale fake news. J'aimerais vous rappeler en fait qu'en juin 2018, le service de check news, fact-checking du journal Libération, a mené une petite enquête dont le résultat était le suivant. Sputnik France n'avait publié aucune fake news lors de la campagne présidentielle de 2017. Donc c'est un journal, comme vous savez, très à gauche. Cerise sur le gâteau, ou plutôt l'ironie de l'histoire, je dirais, il y a justement 2 jours, le même service de check news, de Libération, s'appuyait sur une image, sur une vidéo tournée par notre collègue de Sputnik France, lors des débordements sur les Champs-Élysées, pour démontrer une fake news avancée par un autre journaliste. Donc, on assiste à une sorte de revirement de situation quand Libération s'appuie sur une vidéo de Sputnik France pour démontrer une fake news d'un autre journaliste. Voilà, je vais mentionner également que les fameuses images de saccage de samedi dernier ont été reprises par la chaîne de télévision TF1, par une chaîne publique, je souligne, France TV Info, par le site 20 minutes. Voilà, c'est comme si la CNN ou Washington Post reprenait du contenu exclusif de Sputnik tout d'un coup. Voilà, c'est pour vous situer un peu le contexte. Qu'est-ce que j'aimerais rajouter? Juste, voilà, quelques mots sur l'ingérence étrangère à travers notamment Sputnik, donc les propos du président Macron, voir ces accusations dans la radicalisation, enfin le rôle de Sputnik France dans la radicalisation, voire dans la fascisation du mouvement. Alors, encore une fois, je salue le travail de nos collègues de Mediapart qui ont mené une enquête et dans un article consacré à ce sujet, ils ont démontré que les affirmations du président contredisaient les informations des services de renseignement français. Et je cite, les services de renseignement français n'auraient toujours pas trouvé la moindre trace d'ingérence russe. Voilà. Et même le secrétaire d'État au numérique, Mounir Majoubi, avait avoué lors d'une interview à la chaîne Arte en 2018 que il avait du mal à trouver un seul exemple de fake news créé par Sputnik France. Voilà, c'est plutôt ensuite un état d'esprit permanent. Donc je reviens aux accusations que j'ai citées juste au début. Est-ce qu'il s'agit plutôt d'une ligne éditoriale de Sputnik France qui serait un peu trop alternative, un peu trop contradictoire? Est-ce que c'est la menace que Sputnik représente en France? Je vous laisse juger en consultant notre site, notre chaîne YouTube, parce que nous produisons pas mal de contenus divers et variés.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup. Merci aussi de vous être exprimé en français. Now, I would like to give the floor. On va rester en français avec Jean Musy. Jean Musy, comme je l'ai dit, a une expérience aussi des voyages avec l'APES. Vous avez fait plusieurs voyages. Vous avez été en Ukraine, vous avez été en Crimée, vous avez été dans divers pays. Vous avez aussi l'expérience justement de couvrir une vision large, effectivement, de la liberté de la presse dans le monde. Et Jean, je te donne la parole pour conclure cette première table ronde.
Merci Guy. Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Alors moi je suis ici comme président, c'est vrai, de l'APS, mais je parlerai à mon titre, en mon nom personnel, puisque je ne vais pas engager mon association pour cela. Mais je dois dire d'abord que je suis là comme journaliste. Un journaliste a une mission particulière. C'est ce qu'il souscrit lorsqu'il fait ce métier, et ce qui caractérise ce métier, c'est qu'il a certaines valeurs, et la première d'entre elles, qui est inscrite dans les déclarations des droits et des devoirs du journaliste, c'est de rechercher la vérité, quelles qu'en soient les conséquences pour lui-même. Tout cela pour le droit de savoir du public. Donc le devoir du journaliste, rechercher la vérité, quelles qu'en soient les conséquences pour lui-même, pour le droit de savoir du public. Alors évidemment que lorsqu'on entend des gouvernements, toutes sortes de choses, c'est intéressant. Et moi je ne suis pas ici pour donner un blanc-seing à un gouvernement, quel qu'il soit, avec sa bonne foi ou autre. Je suis là pour m'interroger. D'abord, on s'interroge comme journaliste. Est-ce que ce qu'on entend, c'est vrai? Est-ce que c'est entièrement vrai? Parce que Mme Zakharova est une femme admirable, elle nous dit des choses admirables, mais est-ce que ce qu'elle me dit, est-ce qu'elle a dit toute la vérité? Alors elle dira certainement que oui, mais ça, c'est son problème. Et je ne suis pas là pour critiquer Mme Zakharova, elle est bien d'accord, puisqu'elle est là, on en parle, c'était un exemple. C'est que mon rôle à moi, c'est de dire, est-ce qu'elle a dit toute la vérité? Parce qu'aujourd'hui, le grand problème, c'est le mensonge par omission. La propagande aujourd'hui, autre chose, ce n'est pas de dire des choses forcément fausses, c'est de ne pas dire toute la vérité, ou d'une certaine façon. Voilà, c'est à nous, c'est notre boulot de faire cela. Avec les risques, enfin, comme je l'ai dit, hein, quelles qu'en soient les conséquences pour soi-même, il ne faut pas aller dans un régime qui se veut, pour certains, plus autoritaire que d'autres. Ça commence par ici. Travailler dans un journal, c'est déjà assumer la pression interne du journal, que ce soit par la rédaction en chef, que ce soit par parfois les annonceurs, que ce soit tout simplement par une équipe qui n'aime pas trop qu'on peut-être développe certains sujets ou qu'on traite certains sujets qui pourraient gêner la politique du journal. Et donc, malgré tout, il faut quand même faire ce travail. Donc, déjà, nous sommes des empêcheurs de tourner en rond, et notre rôle est, comme le rappelait très justement Aberlong, non pas de donner raison ou de porter tort, mais de mettre la plume dans la plaie. Voilà. Là où ça gratte, eh bien on est là pour ça, parce qu'il y a quelque chose à voir, à dire, tout ça dans l'intérêt général. Alors quand on entend des rumeurs, comme c'est aujourd'hui très souvent le cas, ou des nouvelles plus ou moins vérifiées, le but est de savoir pourquoi, à qui ça sert, quelles sont les personnes qui ont intérêt à sortir certaines choses à tel moment plutôt qu'à d'autres. Quand des gouvernements prennent la parole, la question est de savoir aussi, ou des responsables politiques, il est intéressant de se poser la question, est-ce que la personne qui parle, tout ce qu'elle dit ou ce qu'elle a fait, cela correspond à sa fonction? Est-ce qu'elle prend les décisions dans le cadre de sa fonction, réellement, ou elle les outrepasse? Il n'y a pas que de la corruption, il y a parfois on outrepasse les règles, etc. Et c'est ainsi qu'on voit le bon fonctionnement d'un régime, d'un gouvernement, d'une institution, d'une entreprise. Ça fait partie des choses qui sont à dire. Alors, aujourd'hui, l'enjeu, c'est le contrôle de l'information. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il s'agit de contrôler une opinion publique, très souvent à court terme, pour l'avoir en sa faveur. Tout est bon pour ça. Et malheureusement, ici ou ailleurs, le grand problème qui a lieu, notamment dans les pays, on va dire, comme disait Mme Zakharova tout à l'heure, le collectif Ouest, c'est qu'on a beaucoup de problèmes dans les médias, avec une fusion de médias, avec des capitalisations financières, industrielles très importantes dans les médias, qui en font aujourd'hui des médias des courroies de transmission de communication de groupes industriels et de gens qui sont de moins en moins indépendants. Ça veut dire aussi beaucoup moins de travail pour les journalistes, on travaille plus, on est payé moins, et on a moins de moyens pour travailler. Ça représente un vrai enjeu aujourd'hui dans la presse occidentale, par exemple. La presse n'est pas toujours mal lotie ailleurs, comme ça. En Amérique latine, en Asie, au contraire, elle explose. Elle va beaucoup mieux. Donc, ce n'est pas un phénomène propre, mondial. C'est une question de région, de zone, de moyens. il faut aussi se poser un certain nombre de questions et avoir aussi une certaine éthique quand on fait ce métier, individuel et collective. Et c'est vrai que, puisque je suis là on m'a demandé de porter la contradiction, évidemment qu'on n'est pas là pour vous mettre en question à titre personnel, mais d'accord, on est là pour poser quelques questions, et quand ça gratte un tout petit peu, je suis là pour regarder un petit peu si dans ce que vous avez dit, il y a un petit peu de petites choses qui peut-être pourraient poser question. Alors moi, je dirais par exemple, par rapport à ce que vous dites tout à l'heure sur la question de la couverture des médias russes en France, il y a cette fameuse histoire que vous n'avez pas soulevée, qui est quand même importante, au départ, qui est un peu le déclencheur. C'est la fameuse rumeur qui a été déployée sur la fameuse homosexualité de M. Macron, qui a été aussi un peu le déclencheur d'un peu tout. J'aurais dû aller jusque-là, parce que c'était ça un petit peu qui a été un peu le moteur de la critique. Alors, ce qui est intéressant dans cette histoire, vous savez, on a traité M. Macron d'homosexuel. Bon, M. Macron est un monsieur qui n'est pas contre les homosexuels. Il a une dame qui est plus âgée que lui. Bon, ben voilà, ça peut arriver, c'est pas grave. L'amour n'a pas d'âge. Et deuxièmement, la question, le deuxième point, c'est qu'il a le droit de vivre comme il veut, et l'information s'arrête, comme dit le canard enchaîné, dans ce domaine-là, à l'entrée de la chambre à coucher. Si, par exemple, on accusait M. Poutine, et je peux le dire d'autant plus ici qu'en Suisse, on n'est pas gêné, si on dit quelque chose sur un chef d'État, contrairement à la France, on serait accusé et on pourrait être pénalement coupable. Mais je ne critique pas M. Poutine. Si on dit M. Poutine, demain, par exemple, est homosexuel en Russie, le problème, c'est qu'il a des positions qui sont anti-gays. Donc là, il y a un intérêt général, voir s'il y a une contradiction entre son comportement et puis, comment dirais-je, ce qu'il dit. C'est ce qu'on appelle un intérêt général à le savoir. Et par exemple, M. Macron, qui sont homosexuels, les Français s'en foutent. Ça ne pose pas de problème. Il n'a jamais fait une critique à ce sujet. Voilà. C'est là où l'intérêt de la vie privée peut être protégé à un certain niveau et qu'il y a un moment donné où on peut aller jusqu'à un certain point à donner des informations sur la vie privée. De l'autre côté, il faut savoir aussi mettre une certaine limite quand il n'y a pas d'intérêt général. Maintenant, voilà, je prends un exemple typique. Quand on est allé voir Spoutnik à Moscou, je crois que c'était il y a 3 ans, on était ravis de rencontrer, de voir cette station, ce média très important, avec beaucoup de monde, etc. On est reçus très aimablement par le rédacteur en chef. On a posé beaucoup de questions sur leur financement. Malheureusement, ils n'avaient pas beaucoup d'informations à nous donner. Mais bon, on n'était peut-être pas informés. Et le problème qui m'a un peu gêné, et c'est un peu dommage parce que ça mettait un peu un malaise quand on est sorti de cela, surtout quand on est journaliste, entre confrères. J'ai demandé une interview à la fin aux représentants de la branche française de Spoutnik qui était avec nous, qui nous accompagnait, et ils ne voulaient pas. Je lui ai dit pourquoi ? Ah, il faut demander aux chefs qui sont là parce qu'ils parlent anglais. Je lui ai dit non, mais tu parles français, j'ai une radio qui parle français, on le fait en français. Ah non, il fallait poser les questions 15 jours à l'avance. Ah, je lui ai dit mais c'est quoi ça ? Si tu me dis que tu es un média libre et que tu es un média comme tout le monde, etc. et tout, pourquoi tu me demandes maintenant, quand on est en train de parler ensemble, 15 jours d'avance pour poser les questions. Voilà. Voilà. J'étais un peu gêné par rapport à ça. C'est une anecdote. Voilà. C'était juste un peu gênant que ça vienne des rédacteurs en chef de Spoutnik, par exemple, à Moscou. Voilà. Ça m'a un peu gêné à ce niveau-là. Maintenant, le problème, c'est qu'on n'est pas là pour le faire de procès, particulièrement plus dans le régime, dans le gouvernement, etc. C'est sûr. On peut relever, comme le fait Reporters sans frontières, qu'en Russie, ils ne sont qu'au 148e rang sur 180 au classement mondial de la presse. Bon, il y a souvent du boulot à faire, les choses changent, les régimes changent, etc. Ça va souvent aller mieux. Il y a largement de quoi dire dans beaucoup d'autres pays aussi, ça c'est sûr. Seulement, où je suis un peu gêné, c'est que dans tous les pays, quels qu'ils soient, ça pourrait être en Malte, ça pourrait être en Turquie, ce soit, comment dirais-je, en Russie, ce soit, dans n'importe quel pays, où qu'il soit, quand je vois des journalistes qui vont en prison, des journalistes qui meurent, ça m'interroge. Et quand on attaque les journalistes, ou on peut tuer un journaliste, ou qu'on peut le mettre en prison n'importe comment, c'est que ceux qui font ça sentent une certaine impunité. Il n'y a pas forcément un gouvernement qui en est responsable. C'est un climat, c'est des lois qui ne sont pas appliquées, c'est une corruption qui existe. On l'a vu récemment à Malte, par exemple, hein, quand cette dame a été tuée récemment parce qu'elle a dénoncé un grand nombre de scandales, elle est assassinée. Pourtant, Malte, on dirait, c'est pas loin, c'est en Occident, Malte. Mais oui, mais le climat est tel, on a vu ça en Slovaquie aussi récemment, le climat est tel, le fonctionnement est tel qu'il n'y a pas de garantie pour le journaliste, véritablement, que ce soit dans le fonctionnement de la loi, que ce soit dans le fonctionnement de la société, de protection. Et là, si les gens sont tués, c'est que quelque part, il y a un permis de tuer ou un permis d'agir. C'est là où je dis stop. C'est là où il y a une limite. Alors, il ne s'agit pas d'accuser un gouvernement plutôt qu'un autre. Moi, je dis, faisons en sorte que les journalistes soient protégés, ici ou ailleurs, de telle façon que ça ne se reproduise pas, et que l'on puisse mener notre travail jusqu'au bout. Que l'on dérange, c'est notre boulot. Que ça ne plaise pas, c'est notre boulot. Mais tout de même, n'oubliez pas, c'est vous, public, qui êtes en jeu. C'est votre liberté qui est en jeu. C'est le fonctionnement d'une démocratie qui est en jeu. Et on ne le fait pas pour nous, on le fait pour le droit de savoir du public. Alors, je ne veux pas être trop long, je lance le débat, c'est un débat. On est prêt à répondre à votre question.
Merci beaucoup, Jean, pour ces propos. Effectivement, on voit que c'est un débat, c'est bien, tu as joué le rôle du critique, absolument nécessaire, absolument nécessaire. Non, très bien, merci beaucoup pour cette intervention. Now, before to give you the floor to the audience, we have two speeches, shorter speeches, because we want to give some place for the debate and to you, to the audience. I would like ask Mrs. Volkonskaya from Crimea to give a short presentation, and Peter Kenny, Vice President of the APES, also to reply or to comment, because you were also visiting Ukraine and Crimea.
Yeah.
So you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. I'm, dear colleagues, yes. I'm Maria Volkonskaya, editor-in-chief of Crimea Magazine. I was born in Crimea.
It's okay.
And got education in Crimea too. Yes, you listen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Speak.
I'm representatives of Crimea Media Holding, which includes a news agency, daily newspaper, and Crimea Magazine, which you can see. Firstly, I would like to present you our video about Crimea Magazine project. You're welcome. How you can... Ольга, поможете мне, да, включить?
The sad fact is that in the information war, the one who tells truth always loses. He is limited to truth, while the lie
Prove that if media wants to develop,
the issue is already presented in unity.
Its prosperity. And unfortunately, our foreign colleagues quite often claim that Crimean journalists are censored and the mass media are not allowed. But you make sure that isn't true. And no doubt that you are so competent in mass media, and you do know a key rule of journalism. Any piece of information must be checked. And if you got interested, you have our contacts. Feel free and visit our peninsula, very sunny and friendly peninsula. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Volkonskaya. Maybe here on Skype. Okay, Peter, please come there. As I told Peter Kenny, Peter Kenny is Vice President of the Association of Foreign Press in Switzerland and Liechtenstein, and is a prominent correspondent for South African press. And also he visited the place 2 years ago, I guess. 2 years, 2017, yeah. Okay, please, Peter.
Okay, so I'm going to be, although I'm the Vice President of APES, I'm also speaking in my personal capacity. Now, this week, over the past week, we've had the 5th anniversary of Russia's annexation of Crimea. And
object to the word annexation.
Yeah, just leave him to speak.
Okay. Or Russia's incorporation of Crimea. And this is actually what I want to highlight to you, is because there were 2 statements this week which highlighted the difference of opinions about Crimea. The one was from Konstantin Kosachev, who we actually spoke to when we went to Russia. He's the chairman of the Russian Foreign Relations Council, and he said, Crimea's peaceful and legal reunification of Russia did not pose a threat to international security, while military interference in the affairs of sovereign states did, which is, to me seems like a little bit of a cryptic statement. His counterpart from the European Union, Federica Mogherini, said that the European Union reiterates it does not recognize and continues to condemn this violation of international law, and it remains a direct challenge to international security. So these are the 2 counterpoints of what we have in Crimea. Well, hold on. Hold on. Let me continue. I come from the another part of Africa. I come from the southern part of Africa, and I've read a lot this week that says, well, Crimea is going to be a big problem for Russia in the long term. I totally agree. It's a fantastic place to go for a holiday. I saw that Sputnik news agency said this week that 6 of the 10 most popular cities for Russian tourists to go to are in Crimea, and it's a stunning place to go to for a holiday. But I think Crimea is going to be a problem for Russia in the same way that another place that was closer to home for me was a problem for South Africa. I think it's what I call a problem of entitlement. If we look at a number of international issues these days, this is what I mean by entitlement. This is quoting Vladimir Putin saying, Russia will never give away Crimea under no conditions. And if an internationally recognized referendum or vote was held in Crimea today, perhaps Crimea would, and probably would go to Russia. But the way in which Crimea was reintroduced or annexed to Russia could have been done maybe in the 19th century or the early 20th century. But for a member of the Security Council to go about that in that way, I think is going to create problems. South Africa always felt that Namibia was part of itself. During the Second World War, South Africa, which had conquered Namibia, which had originally been a German colony, thought of incorporating it as a province of South Africa. But after the Second World War, South Africa's refusal to grant Namibia independence was a continual problem at the United Nations. South Africa had big sanctions against it, much bigger than what Russia has for its actions with the Ukraine and Crimea. It was so that before South Africa would release Nelson Mandela, it was involved in deep international negotiations, which involved the then Soviet Union and the other countries that were involved in South Africa's proxy war in Namibia and Angola, such as the United States. But when a settlement was agreed, which would satisfy South Africa that Cuban forces, 50,000 Cuban forces in Angola would eventually leave, South Africa agreed to release Nelson Mandela and started negotiations for a democratic government in South Africa. And it became an acceptable part of the international community again. So I think that if Russia wants to solve a lot of its problems, I actually read yesterday that Bloomberg was reporting that 6% of Russia's GDP has been trimmed off the GDP since what happened in Crimea over the last 5 years. If Russia wants to have Crimea, it has to have an internationally acceptable solution to it. And Russia is a member of the Security Council. It engages with other countries on other issues. It can seek mediation through some form, but it will solve a lot of problems for itself. That's just my contribution to the debate. Thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for this comment. I think it's very important. Yes, yes. many hands up. As you know, here we are defending the freedom of the press, and that's important to have 2 points of view, to have a real discussion. And I think thanks to your comments and presentation to everybody, we were successful to get it. Now, maybe I would open the floor, and as I promised to give the floor to you, just to be short. Answers to be short. It's not comments, just questions. Otherwise, we can stay here for the full day. So please.
Bonjour à tous. Moi, j'ai une question pour Madame Zakharova. Donc, je vais peut-être attendre. Je ne sais pas si vous préférez que je... Ok. Donc, vous nous avez longtemps présenté la situation de la liberté de la presse en dehors de la Russie. Moi, j'aimerais entendre votre point de vue sur ce qui se passe sur le sol russe et dans les territoires contrôlés par la Russie. Pour être très concret, j'aimerais citer 3 cas sur lesquels j'aimerais entendre ce que vous en pensez. Alors, le premier est celui de Stanisław Bassiev, qui est emprisonné dans le Donbass, qui a été interviewé au mois d'août 2018 par des médias russes alors qu'il était emprisonné. Est-ce que vous trouvez que cela est éthique et que ça correspond à la lettre ou à l'esprit des conventions de Genève? Deuxième point, Vous avez parlé de M. Wyszyński. Moi, je suis tout à fait d'accord qu'il n'est pas normal que des journalistes soient emprisonnés. Or, vous n'avez pas parlé du cas de M. Sushenko, qui est un journaliste qui a travaillé à Paris et qui est aujourd'hui emprisonné à Moscou. Est-ce que vous trouvez que c'est possible d'organiser un échange entre l'Ukraine et la Russie, justement entre ces deux journalistes? Enfin, un troisième point, où nous avez parlé de la Crimée et aussi vos collègues nous ont mentionné la Crimée. Il y a le cas de M. Mykola Semana qui a été condamné à 2 ans et demi de prison en Crimée pour ses activités de journaliste. Est-ce que vous trouvez que ça respecte la liberté de la presse? Justement, il a été condamné parce qu'il parlait de l'annexion. Merci.
Merci pour votre question, Madame Zakharova.
Just one question. Can you please introduce yourself?
Sure. Igor Reshetnik, Ukraine Action NGO France.
So you're not the media representative, as I understand.
I'm an NGO representative.
You're an activist. Because when I asked you, are you Ukrainian? You told me, no, I'm from France. And I just looked through very nice pictures of you here wearing Ukrainian flags all over Geneva. So why you're hiding that you're from Ukraine, I have no idea. But never mind. On the first person you mentioned, I don't have this last name. If you will give me, I will check.
I see.
You told that that happened in Donbass. Actually, this is a part of Ukraine.
But it's Russian media.
I just to be clear, just want to check it one more time. Probably it's necessary to everybody who's covering the situation in Donbass, in Ukraine, look through Minsk agreements more often, because they said that this is part of Ukraine. Do you agree with this? So please, probably it's necessary to just remind yourself. And but please give me this last name. I will check. But this is to Donbass region. The question to them, not for Russia. About Mr. Sushenko, you are talking that he is a journalist. Of course, regionally, when he was working in Europe, of course, he worked as a journalist. But when he came to Russia, he was not a journalist. You know, I have I graduated from the Moscow State Institute of Foreign Relationship, International Relationship, as a journalist, but I've never worked as a journalist. I have a diploma saying that I'm a journalist, but I'm not. And when he came to Russia, he did not have journalist accreditation. He did not get journalist visa. It has nothing to do with journalism. He was not acting as a journalist. He was acting. He has another role, and our special services were very clear with that. And so, actually, we did not regard him as a journalist, and you know that, I think. So, a third one.
Mykola Semana in Crimea.
So, probably I will give the floor. Just you can use a mic. Нет, you can use a. Используйте микрофон.
Во-первых, я хотела прокомментировать. I'm sorry, my English is not so fluently. That's why I need an translation. I'm sorry. Okay, you help me. Okay. Просто дело в том, что это подтверждает тот факт. Вот представитель после меня, который рассказывал о Крыме. Мы говорим о том, что я представитель Крыма, крымчанка. Я говорю о том, что как мы живем, но человек, который не крымчанин, нам рассказывает, здесь рассказывает, как живется в Крыму. Точно так же о Николае Семене, насколько я знаю, что у него были обыски, у него нашли экстремальную литературу какую-то, правильно?
So, as far as I...
Can you translate it?
So, Yuri, tu peux bien ici traduire. We will do it consecutively because it's more convenient.
You know,
Just a second.
okay. I have one general question to everybody who is talking. Yeah, okay, sure. If we found an interpreter, that is great. Yeah.
Alors, moi, je viens de la Crimée et j'ai parlé de cette région en tant qu'une habitante, une personne originaire de la Crimée. Là, on a mentionné tout à l'heure une personne qui n'est pas de la Crimée, qui essaie de faire passer des messages concernant la vie en Crimée sans connaître cette région. Sauf erreur, si je ne me trompe pas, on a fait une fouille chez lui, on a trouvé de la littérature extrémiste chez lui. Donc c'est pour cela que cette personne est dans cette situation.
Enfin, si je peux me permettre, je crois que la traduction n'est pas exacte. Parce que c'est deux personnes différentes. Je pense que la référence à la personne qui a raconté tout à l'heure des choses, c'était par rapport à la personne qui parlait au micro. Par contre, la personne chez qui on a fait des perquisitions, c'est un journaliste criméen qui réside en Crimée depuis des années.
Вы скажете сами по-русски?
No, the thing is, this is like kind of absurd. We have Crimea, and what I've heard from one gentleman having a floor, having a speech here, that Crimea is a problem or long-term problem for Russia. I have two topics to say. The first one, if we are so fluent in talking about Crimea, if we are making decisions all over the world on Crimea and because of Crimea, probably it is fair enough to go there directly to talk to people, or to let people to come here in Europe, in European countries, or Brussels or EU structures, the concrete places which issuing, as a printer, resolutions, decisions, criticism on Russia and other countries on Crimea. Probably it's fair enough to have an objective view you were talking about. But how can you shape your objective view without direct information? Your views are based on somebody who usually never been there. Neither 20 years ago, no 5 years ago, no now. Who do you trust? Who do you believe? Only those who are repeating the words of somebody. But you do not have the direct information from there. Why you do not want to go there? This is the question. Isn't it fair enough to go and to talk? Isn't it fair or just organize direct online conferences with the Crimean people? It's actually free of charge in nowadays to talk to dozens or thousands of people all over the world. And I think that the question of this presentation was very true and very concrete. Probably you are really do not want to know the truth, or you're scared to know the truth, or the truth that you will get and know will contradict the reality which is proposed to you. Probably this is the matter and this is the issue. We're talking and we're watching so many pieces of news articles and reports about Crimean Tatar. We are trying, we are struggling within several years to bring the representatives of Crimean Tatar community to you. And we fail each time because you and your governments do not allow us to do this. They just do not want to hear the truth. And the guy, Mr. Musayev, who is a journalist, he is editor-in-chief of Millet television, and yes, and he should be here, but he's out of visa, as other hundreds and thousands of Crimean people. And this is the evidence that tons of materials which is published on Crimea is fake, because the real people cannot have a floor.
So we will hear Mr. Musayev by Skype, just for a few minutes.
Ok, ce soir.
As other hundreds of thousands of Iranian people. And this is the evidence that
change that has occurred on the Republic of the last 5 years. On the very first presidential decree by Vladimir Putin was a decree on the rehabilitation on the Crimea Tatars, the Germans, the Armenians, the Greeks, on the other people of Crimea. We have adopted the constitution. We have adopted the constitution that has language legislated on the Russia, Crimea Tatars, and the Ukrainian language as the official languages on the peninsula. This constitution. Some enclaves on the Crimea Tatars have resolved access onto the Veta gas, electricity, hospital, school, roads, and kindergartens for the first time. Today, we the people of Crimea have something to be proud of. We have Crimea Bridge, airport, the buildings, the trade, Tavrida, and almost all the cities and villages on the peninsula have their infrastructures enhanced and improved. But the most important thing is that we can be proud of ourselves, as we have been working really hard for the last year to improve our life greatly, and we support. The Crimea Peninsula is very rich in the agricultural and land resources. Thanks to the government support, this sector is being activity development now. Factory and industrial facilities we closed in the Ukrainian period. Now our revolt and modernization. Today, industrial sector in the leading sector of the Crimea economy. With the return to Russian, to the Crimean have restored access to modern high-quality technology. At this moment, digital broadcasting covers about 95% of the area of peninsula free of range. The Crimeans case was 27 different digital canals with high quality on the signal. Also, they can listen to 4 radio stations and one of the broadcast in the Crimea Tatars language. The mobile network is still being improved. The peninsula is is file covered by 2G and 3G signal and partly by 4G. We have 424 sources of the mass media with broadcasting and culture, not only in Russian but also in Crimea, Tatars, Ukrainian, Bulgarian, Greek, German, and English language.
Thank you very much, Mr. Musayev.
1 minute.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, Crimea is fairly integrated in the Russian economic, and this integration has turned out of land into a flourishing region. Today in Crimea we are building hospital, children garden and school. We building temples and mosques. This year we are going to finish the building of the general mosques in Simferopol. And also, I want to present the Crimea Spring album in English. And clearly installation, all the events happened 5 years ago. Я бы хотел передать альбом и Конституцию Республики Крым и альбом «Крымская весна» через коллег, чтобы вы в свою очередь увидели данную информацию.
J'aimerais vous remettre la Constitution de la République de la Crimée et aussi ce livre de photos, cet album de photos, pour que vous puissiez voir avec vos propres yeux cette information concernant notre région, la Crimée. Je le ferai par mes collègues.
So thank you, Mr. Musayev, for your comment and presentation. Now I would like to give the floor to Maria, and we will go on with the discussion. Okay.
Just the second topic I'd like to mention is that you told in your speech you were talking about the Crimea problem for Russia. I just want to share the view that actually this problem was not created by Russia. The whole problem that lies nowadays in Ukraine, including Donbass, including just all the difficulties the people in Ukraine are experiencing right now, it's not the problem that was created by Russia. That was Victoria Nuland from the State Department. There were 3 or even more ministers of foreign affairs of EU countries, but not Russia, who were taking part in Maidan and all what were happening in Ukraine 2013 to 2014. That was not President of Russia who were calling to Ukrainian people for moving on with their reforms, etc., etc. No. We were talking about our respect to Ukraine and their domestic policy. And we always stress that this is up to Ukrainian people to elect their president, to elect their government, to shape their government, to elect their parliament, etc., etc. That was not Mr. Lavrov who was making statements in Maidan, Kiev, and other Ukrainian regions. So, Crimea problem was not created by Russia. Yes, we did what we did, and we were very, very, very transparent and honest with it. And we are, of course, experiencing lots of difficulties as Crimean people as well, because of sanctions, because of very unfair approach, because of lack the truth in EU and United States on Crimea. And usually what lots of correspondents and journalists and media people and politicians are talking about, that truth does not have cost, does not have price. But I don't think that in this case this is true. I think that truth has a price. It costs you, it will cost you about 300 or 400 euros just to get the truth. Just please buy a ticket to Crimea and go there. And this will be the price for the truth. It's not too expensive for you. You can afford it. You can afford it. We can help. If you can just leave it without our assistance, please, but buy a ticket and go there.
Thanks. Okay, thanks for this comment. I would like to, yes, just a second. I will give the floor for just a short comment to Peter, and now I will give the floor only to journalists because we are in the press center, and I think the priority is for journalists, not for non-journalists who can hear. And I would also like to come back to the press freedom. So last intervention about Crimea, and after I open the floor about press freedom and other topics with all our participants. Okay, Peter, just a short...
about the problem of Crimea, there are only 21 states, I think, that recognize Crimea as part of Russia, and none of the members of the Security Council, apart from Russia, recognize it as part of Russia. So it is an international problem as well as a Western problem.
Okay.
Lots of people did not recognize Mandela for decades, you mentioned.
Okay, so thanks for this comment about Crimea. Now, no more questions, otherwise
we can move on with you directly after the conference.
You can continue after, together. Okay, yes, please, and after. And present yourself, please.
Tom Miles, Tom Miles from Reuters News Agency. I have two questions I'd like to put to Maria Zakharova. The first one is about the power of laughter and satire in the media. In America, in Europe, we laugh at our leaders. We ridicule them. We satirize them when we think they're being hypocritical or ridiculous. Do you think Russians have that same right? Is satire a powerful force in Russia? Do you think Russians should laugh at President Putin when they find him ridiculous and ludicrous? The second question is, I just tweeted one or two of your lines about, please be precise if you want to accuse Russia. Otherwise, you can say we're producing fake news and propaganda. I tweeted that. Somebody commented on the tweet and said the CCTV of the Salisbury suspects is very precise. Well, I think that's a good point, don't you? Thanks.
Thanks.
Yeah, should I start with the second one, or CCTV? It's not about Chinese television, yes?
No, now you're being funny.
Okay.
Yes, closed circuit television.
What particular CCTV piece you are mentioning? Actually, we thought that United Kingdom just captured by CCTV cameras just all over the country. We thought that if they've got Skripal from Russia as a person who was connected not to one, but to, I think, several secret services all over the world, his place, his house, his location should be covered by hundreds of CCTV cameras. Isn't it ridiculous that we still, within 1 year, had nothing from CCTV cameras what happened around his house those days a year ago? Just nothing. It's not me who mentioned CCTV. This is some of your followers who mentioned it. But this is the most fair question I ever heard. Where are the materials from CCTV cameras from United Kingdom? This is the best question ever. They wrote about anything. They wrote about everything. They wrote about cats. They wrote about Litvinenko. They wrote about what else? About Skripal's daughter. About they pretended and they regarded all the versions. But they did not present any materials, any facts on this issue. So the question is more than fair. Where are CCTV materials which surrounded, from the cameras which should surround? Can you imagine that the house where Skripal, who was the agent for several secret services, was not surrounded by cameras in United Kingdom? I cannot believe that. I cannot believe that. What they are hiding, why they did not do this. So on your first question about criticism in Russia for Russian politicians, please could you be more specific on your question? You think there should be more TV programs with criticism, or what? It should be cartoons, newspapers, should be more, or should be they more or better quality? What you are talking about? What criticism? Or about just Russian people who do not have the right or the possibility to talk over the Russian government? You really think about that?
No, I thought the question was clear. I think if it's not clear, I'll just leave it there. But I think my question was quite clear.
We actually we don't have late night shows like you or your colleagues have in United States. This is absolutely true, but that was not in Russian traditions. We have more jokes or anecdotes or something like that. We have a little bit different sort of humor, but still enjoying this.
But sorry, I have to just say, I mean, the Russian tradition is a Soviet tradition. So of course there's no, late night shows laughing at your leaders, because that was illegal. My point is, is it happening now? If not, why not? Would you support it? Do you think that people have the right to laugh at President Putin?
I think that people have all rights to love, not to love these particular politician or that particular politician. It's up to them to decide to love or not to love them. How can me, as a person who represents somehow the government, I mean, I'm working for the ministry, how can I decide for the Russian people? As a member of Russian society, just in my personal capacity, I do have my personal choice for that politician or for this politician or for that particular person or for this particular person.
Yeah, okay. Yes, please.
My name is Olesya Nikolaichuk. I am representative of the Wall Post, and as well I am the legal member of Union of Ukrainian Reporters. I would like to talk about the facts, and my question would be about the facts. You said that you did what you did, but a month ago Russia was attacked the Ukrainian ships, and not just attacked, they captured the crews. And due to the law, you should admit their status as the prisoners of the war. And now I have a question to Ms. Maria Zakharova, as a representative, as an official representative. Why this status not yet admitted? Thank you.
By whom? By international society?
No, by Russia.
Because we do not accept this, because we do not agree with this, because you just not honestly mentioned that them like members as crew, but you know the facts that there were several people who represented Ukrainian secret services there, and this is fact.
What about the other people?
No, please go on.
We have a legal case for that, and Russian position on this. So the position on Ukraine is absolutely unacceptable on this issue, because it's another piece of fake news. And just one more thing, just about you mentioned that you presented Union. Just for the international audience to understand, we have Ukrainian journalists working in Moscow, in Russia, on a permanent base and on non-permanent base. We are issuing them visas, giving accreditations, they are making interviews, but with not governmental representatives. They are not allowed, just for your understanding, that the representatives of, for example, Union cannot make an interview with me. They can ask questions, very provocative, but they're not allowed by their so-called leaders in Kiev to make interviews with me. Just not allowed. But Russian correspondents are not allowed to work in Kiev or in Ukraine. They're not just not allowed. They're stopped when they try to cross the border in the airport. They're sent back to Russia. So Russian correspondents have no possibility to work in Ukraine. So this is a fact.
Okay, thanks. Yes, nasza gazeta, ja.
Thank you, Guy. Nadia Sikorsky, Nasha Gazeta, Russian language edition in Geneva. I have two very quick, short questions to both Mrs. Zakharova and Mrs. Zaki, and please don't take them personal. It's really nothing personal. It's just a question. First to Mrs. Zakharova. Yes, it's business. You said, Mrs. Zakharova, that Mr. Musayev, whom we heard and who obviously had prepared his intervention for this occasion, he wasn't given the visa to come here. Do you mean by the Swiss government? The Swiss didn't give him the visa to come for this occasion?
This is a very complicated question, very complicated, because for yesterday we were leaving Moscow.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday we were leaving Moscow. He has no passport, get him back, and he has no visa. When he was given his passport back, there was no visa inside.
By the Swiss consulate?
Oh, yeah.
But the Swiss, that's what I just wanted to understand.
Probably,
by the Swiss consulate.
So probably the visa could or would or is issued. We have no idea because the plane left. The person also left, but in Moscow. The passport he got has no visa inside. So he was not refused, but he was not given visa. He was not given visa on time. This is 100%, this is true.
But by the Swiss consulate?
Yeah, we asked, of course, the Swiss
side.
Okay. But
this is all I
it's not
to know.
About this country. This is the EU and European countries who attributed to the EU position and to United States position not to issue Crimean people visa.
No, but Switzerland is not part of EU.
No, that's why I mentioned European countries. No. Okay. I mentioned European countries.
Okay.
I mentioned that to those who attributed their position to EU. I just stress it. To those countries who attributed their position. So this is the joint position and joint problem that EU countries and those... Oh, please, this is our ambassador.
Thank you.
You have to speak to the microphone, please, otherwise you will...
But Guy, I have also the question to Miret afterwards.
Microphone is...
Just to help you to answer this question.
Thank you.
Switzerland
use the ambassador. Use the microphone.
I hope my voice sounds quite loud. Switzerland is a member of Schengen agreement on visas.
Okay.
That's why if somebody is in a blacklist of Schengen countries, he will not be or she will not be issued a visa to Switzerland.
Okay.
That's simple answer.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Okay.
Yes.
And just to answer, may I just continue for brief? For Ukrainian question, is there any war between Ukraine and Russia? Does Ukraine declare a war against Russia? So how they can be proclaimed prisoners of war? First point. Second point, they have violated the border of Russia, which existed even before 2014. It was Russian territory, even before Crimean events. So it was simply criminal offense.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, question to me.
Yeah. So, second part of my question to Miret Zaki, and again, nothing personal to either of you. You started by your presentation, which I very much appreciated, by saying that all governments lie, and every professional journalist should know that. Mrs. Zakharova represents the government. Does she lie?
Mrs. Zakharova is here to defend a certain point of view, but exactly like Jean Musy said, and I also appreciated very much his speech, we are supposed to have some distance with this and never take for granted and never, ever align ourselves with any government speech. And I respect very much Mrs. Zakharova, and we often, like you yourself, deal with government people. We know that we're not just supposed to take notes and align ourselves with those views. And I think we should remind this very strongly today, because I feel that this value is getting lost somewhere in the process. Or when you talk with colleague journalists, they seem not to understand that even if we are in a supposedly democratic country, they're supposed to keep the same distance and understand very deeply that governments everywhere use some or other form of propaganda, even if this word is very strong. It's not just banana republics who use propaganda. It's everyone nowadays. So we should be always independent, never get too much colored. If a true journalist shouldn't even very much adhere to a party or another one. If you're too much identified with a political color or an ideology, everyone knows already whom you're working for, and they can believe you're sold to a certain cause or to some private interests. So more than anything, a journalist should display their independence and prove it by words and acts. And this is very important to remind it today. And Mrs. Maria Zakharova is here to defend the position of her country, which is very normal, but it's only half of the, you know, I don't know if it's half or 3/4 of the truth, but I mean, therefore the debate is important, because you will have several people with clashing opinions and it will balance each other. Hence comes the concept of checks and balances in every democracy, is that you have several lobbies representing a multiplicity of interest, you have several parties representing a multiplicity of ideologies and point of views, so that they each balance each other. At the very instant when a few parties, a few lobbies start to concentrate too much power in them and too much ideology, one and only, and not share the scene with other views, we're done really. And I feel that the spectrum of ideology also in the Western and even in Switzerland has become very tight, and we exclude many things that we estimate is too much right or too much left or too much this or too much that, and we are extremely stuck in a very centrist view of things. And nowadays, what do we see? That the center of the political spectrum is collapsing everywhere. I mean, the Brexiters, the yellow vests, and the Trump electors, there are people who are saying we are making a secession, we're spinning off, because the caviar left and the liberal right have just converged with the middle and upper classes' interests and values, and they have diffused them and spread them very wide, and they just forgot about the basis, and therefore journalists should really represent all all the layers of society, which is absolutely key. You know? Thank you for giving me the opportunity to stress this.
Thanks. Alors, juste un mot, Jean.
Voilà. Voilà. Une chose intéressante. Pour donner un exemple, pour revenir un peu ce que vient de dire aussi ma consoeur Mireille Zaki. Le point de vue des gouvernements nous intéresse comme point de vue. On n'est pas obligé de l'épouser. Madame Zakharova, tout à l'heure, je prends un exemple, elle nous a dit, voilà, M. Macron, le gouvernement de M. Macron n'a pas répondu aux questions que nous lui avons posées. Bon, premièrement, je n'ai pas, par exemple, entendu le point de vue de M. Macron encore. Ça, c'est un problème de relation entre deux gouvernements. Moi, il me faudrait, par exemple, entendre le point de vue du gouvernement de M. Macron sur ce sujet. Il y a sans doute des choses qui ont été peut-être dites que moi, je ne connais pas et que j'aimerais avoir. Et puis, les relations entre États. Il y a une bonne partie qu'on ne connaît pas. Si demain, vous voyez, mettons, 15 espions russes qui sont exclus de la France parce que, d'un coup, ils sont indésirables, on ne vous dit pas pourquoi. Et vice-versa. S'il y a une rétorsion de la part du gouvernement russe, par exemple, pour expulser des gens, etc., nous ne savons pas pourquoi. Donc, je dirais que quand les États parlent, il faut toujours pouvoir avoir le besoin de vérifier et d'avoir toute la vérité. Or, le problème dans les déclarations d'État, c'est qu'il y a des intérêts, et de ces intérêts, nous ne les connaissons pas tous. Alors, Mme Zakharova dit des choses passionnantes, je retiens avec beaucoup d'intérêt ce qu'elle a dit, et il me faut maintenant enquêter pour avoir un autre point de vue. Et je pense que si on fait ce travail, on n'admet pas les choses au premier degré parce qu'on est là, parce qu'elle est sympa, en plus elle parle bien, elle connaît bien son affaire, c'est une personnalité éminente du gouvernement russe. On est ravis qu'on puisse la rencontrer, qu'elle soit là, mais n'empêche que personnellement, j'ai besoin d'en savoir plus. Sans mettre forcément en doute ce qu'elle dit à la base, mais je dois en savoir plus. Donc je dois enquêter, je dois savoir. Sinon, je ne la crois pas sur parole. C'est tout.
Merci Jean pour ces précisions. On va prendre encore deux questions. Il y avait Kirsi et puis Monsieur Jourdan. Donc Kirsi from the Finnish press. Enfin, let you present.
Hello, I'm from the Finnish newspaper. Mrs. Zakharova, as you are here as a speaker of the foreign minister of Russia, and as you were speaking of the collective West, the next elections in Parliament towards the European Union country are taking place in Finland. So what kind of subjects you would like to see in the political campaign in Finland concerning you and towards the European Union? Thank you.
It's absolutely up to you to decide. We have no views on your entire domestic issues. It's up to your people and up to your representatives of NGOs, political movements, journalist corp, to discuss the issues and matters which are the matters of principle for your society. This is the first thing. The second thing, of course, talking about the bilateral relationship, especially about Finland, we have long history of relationship. We have difficult pages in our relationship. We have bright moments in bilateral communication and cooperation. And of course, we would like to have a stable, normal, friendly relationship with the country and then with the people, in the interest of the people. But this is a major position. It's actually is not connected with particular elections to the EU, to the European Parliament, or to other structures within the country, outside the country. It's a basic position for Russia and for Russian government.
Do you have good relations with Finland?
I think very good relationship. We have visits on different levels. We have visits and negotiations which are held by our leaders. We have lots of spheres to communicate and promote communications, people-to-people contacts, etc., etc. Yeah, we have an anniversary. We marked, so very nice relationship. And about honesty and about the truth, you know, it's I think it's a matter for a very interesting and very fruitful discussion. It could not be answered by as it's not could be given as a funny answer for the funny question. It's actually not funny at all, because we are living in a post-true world, in the world of post-truth, when people cannot indicate what is true and what is fake, cannot indicate at all. Even if we're not for politics, even when we are just for buying food, even when we're watching commercial, we cannot find the truth. We cannot find the answers for the simplest question. We cannot indicate who is talking right, who is talking bad, who is talking fake, on the principal matters of of human being and mankind. We have no answers for the basic things. Is this a woman or is this a man? Let us probably start from this one. But you want answer on major, I mean, space scale things, and you want it from me. And of course you want it from me. But the problem is that we do not have answers for the basics. And how can we move on in our world with all its complicity when we do not have answers for the basics? When we're switching on the TV and we're watching the commercial, and the money from this commercial is sponsoring very important things in our lives, but the things they're promoting through these commercials are killing us. Where's the truth and where is fake? So it's a very psychological problem. But I cannot leave this question or leave this answer without my personal human touch. Yes, I am presenting the government. Of course, I'm not representing the whole government, but I'm the person to talk and to speak about Russian foreign policy. Is this propaganda? Yes, of course. But we have, and I'm very honest with it. I am very honest. It is. But the word propaganda is bad when we're talking about the media. The media cannot be a part of propaganda.
Yes, thank you.
But I'm sorry, what about organizations? What about the commercial organizations? What about the financial institute? They are all about propaganda. They are moving on and they are pushing forward their ideas in every part of your life, not their life. So do I. But what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to be not insistive, but I'm trying to be. I'm trying to explain. You know, I'm out of presentations, I'm out of any sort of statements, any brochures and something like that. I'm trying to explain my position and my point of view and my personal view on very serious matter. As a human being, as a Russian citizen, as a person who was grown up in one country, spent lots of years and worked in another country, been all over the world, know 2 languages, but anyhow, was dedicated myself to exploring another culture of another country and another region of the world, and trying to be objective. I have a conversation, a very nice one, which was on public, with Mr. Venediktov, who is the editor-in-chief of Echo Moskvy, actually one of, I don't know, so-called media outlet which represent our positions, but it's very hard to indicate. Represent alternative view on Russian foreign policy as well, within Russia. And that conversation was on public. That was in Vladivostok city. And we were asked a question, and I think that was a young journalist who asked, should journalists and should media representative be objective? And can he be or she be objective in our days? And Mr. Venediktov was very insistent that there is no objectivity in this world at all, especially in the media. How can you be objective? You're not a judge, you're not, I don't know, a nurse, you're not a doctor, you're just a journalist. You have your point of view, you should move on this direction. But I was advocating another point of view. I think, I really trust in this, I really believe religiously in this, that we all should be objective, even those who represent governments. And we're trying to be. And on Crimea issue especially, that is why I'm not insistive. That is why I'm so inviting. I'm inviting you to go there and talk not to me and not to President Putin or Prime Minister Medvedev, but to people. Mr. Musayev, he was prepared to talk to you via this microphone and sitting this table, but he wasn't let to come. He's not fluent in English, this is obvious, but we were prepared with interpretation just to let him talk directly to you, and he wasn't allowed, not by Kremlin and Russian government. So I'm just inviting you to go there and to have objective view on the things I'm trying to present from my point of view.
Okay, thank you. 2 last questions, and we have to leave, so Alain and Margareta will stop before we stop.
Je vais poser ma question en français. On aura peut-être besoin d'une traduction. Alors, je pose ma question en français parce que la dernière fois, je l'ai posée en anglais, c'était avec Sergueï Lavrov, et il n'a pas compris ma question parce que mon anglais était très mauvais et j'ai cru que je l'avais fâché. Et depuis, je ne parle plus anglais avec mes interlocuteurs russes. Donc, je vais veiller à ce que la traduction soit bonne pour que vous ayez la bonne question. Voilà. Vous avez parlé de ce contexte de propagande, mais aussi de guerre de l'information, et tout le monde s'y livre, tous les camps. Je suis étonné que vous n'ayez pas mentionné, puisque vous parlez de ce contexte, une opération qui a été révélée sur Internet qui s'appelle Integrity Initiative. Et je voulais savoir si cette opération, vous avez le sentiment qu'elle a pu s'étendre à la France et que ça pourrait expliquer un certain nombre de difficultés. Et je voulais savoir aussi si, finalement, à travers des opérations de communication comme vous êtes en train de mener aujourd'hui, vous êtes aussi en train de répondre à ces opérations d'influence qui sont menées et que chaque camp mène, finalement, parce que il y a d'ange nulle part et chacun essaye de défendre ses idées. Donc, je voulais savoir s'il n'y avait pas aussi une forme de réponse asymétrique, puisque le terme est souvent utilisé et conçu par les stratèges, pour répondre à ces opérations, dont Integrity Initiative. Merci.
Just a few words about this situation with this institute for, Integrity Initiative. It's you mean the British one? Why didn't I mention it? Because not because I don't want or I don't know about it. I mentioned it several times even during my briefings, weekly briefings. But because there are dozens of such integrative initiatives which were produced by our Western colleagues all over the world. There are dozens of them, and this is the part of a very huge propaganda machine. And the financial support for these programs, it's about billions of dollars each year. I think it's not about me to mention these programs. I think it's about you to research and to explore, to make some reports. Because if I mention them, it will be like, trying to be insistent in very objective things and obvious things. It's the simplest way. I don't want to be that simple. I just want to talk and to discuss. You mentioned it, and I think that lots of other very interesting situations and things today were mentioned. Probably it's, for us, it's a sign to have another conversation in some time, probably in summer or in autumn, on different or under different angles to regard the situation in information sphere. Because I can talk really long, and I can I can present lots of things and situations and examples of very strange approach to what is going on in international information sphere, to very unfair when, for example, governmental representatives are talking on public about freedom of speech, and on the other hand are hiding so many things which are absolutely against the freedom of speech, and doing in practical terms lots of things which really unsupportive for the media outlets. So probably this is the start. I don't think, it's not like one day. I don't want to make this like one day performance. I have other stages where I can deliver. I think it's necessary to discuss things. It's no matter that we have different, sometimes opposite positions. It's urgent to start these discussions, because take a look on France. You mentioned that, for example, Russian media discussed something connected with Mr. Macron. Could you be more precise? Could you present us these materials which you think are not acceptable? Because I have no idea what you're talking about. If you are talking about Russia Today, they did not have any of this. So please, send us something. Give me the link. Give me, print out the article on something, Russia Today or Sputnik, because Sputnik France or others have something unacceptable toward Mr. Macron. So for these questions and for these situations, I think we can have the continuation of this dialogue or this conversation.
Okay. Thank you. So last questions. Yes.
Merci.
No, we stop.
There is no freedom of expression.
Yes.
Merci. Because of Russian representative.
I am the Swiss guy here on the background.
Because
just Margarita. No,
Bloody Kremlin, you should add.
Margarita, on donnera la parole à M. Mirimanov.
Margarita Strut, Radio Moldova. Merci d'avoir parlé français aujourd'hui, parce qu'aujourd'hui, c'est la journée de la francophonie. En plus. Donc, ma question s'adresse à Madame Kolesina, mais peut-être c'est Madame Zakharova qui va répondre. Vous avez parlé des difficultés des journalistes de s'accréditer et de travailler en France. Je ne sais pas si les journalistes russes rencontrent des problèmes dans d'autres pays du monde. Je suppose que oui. Ma question est la suivante. Quelle est la réponse de la Russie concernant cette approche? Est-ce qu'il y a une réponse symétrique, ou je ne sais pas comment elle s'appelle en français, probablement symétrique, par rapport à des difficultés des journalistes de pratiquer le journalisme dans d'autres pays? Merci.
Yes, there are similar situations in other countries towards Russian journalists. France that was, I think, brightest example. Why is France? Because from one hand, they're trying to work out some rules, some resolutions for protecting journalists and protecting society from the fake news. But from another hand, they have this terrible approach to the free media to work in their country. But we have the similar, not the similar, but close situation in United Kingdom, when Russia Today or Sputnik and some other Russian media is called and titled by the government of United Kingdom as propaganda machine, etc., etc., without sending them or Russia, through diplomatic channels or official channels, any sort of improvements, but announcing and claiming them being a propaganda machine. We have the situation in the United States of America where Russian media was called as a foreign agent. And Russian media published lots of materials on this issue that absolutely not helpful for the media to work. And actually for some of the Russian media outlets, that was even crucial. I mean, the situation was really dangerous because there was no possibility for them to work in the United States any longer. What else? We have the situation in Ukraine. I mentioned some pieces, but for example, we have Mirotvorets website where Russian media and Russian journalists' names are published on the daily basis with all their personal data, names, cell phones, addresses, home addresses. And they are pointed out as the enemies, those who should be focused, etc., etc. This is actually dangerous. And this is not the list of 5 people or 10 people. It's 100 names. We have a situation, for example, very concrete situation with Poland and with representative Russian journalist, Mr. Sviridov, who was sent back from Poland to Russia, who was actually and is a Poland as a country, Poland as a culture lover. He really speaks fluent Polish. He likes and really knows the history of this country. He spent lots of years there. He made dozens of interviews with all sorts of Polish politicians, and he was sent back from Poland and accused not directly, but through the media, that he was somehow connected to some sort of services. He was never accused or never titled as an agent, but somehow there were some leaks, and now he is going through the European court or European sort of jurisdictional procedures to have a right to go back to work to Poland. And in that particular case, we had to act. We sent Polish journalists back to Poland. That was not our choice. That was not our choice. That Polish correspondent was working in Russia for, I think, 7 or 9 years. He was well known, but we had to act. We had to react somehow. So sometimes we announce that there will be similar measures towards foreign correspondents. But all the time we underlined that this is not our choice. We are for giving floor to any sort of information, journalists, reports, etc., etc. For example, with Ukraine, we do not have not similar, but even close reaction, because, as I mentioned, Ukrainian journalists are enjoying their life in Moscow. They get accreditations. They go to the press conferences. They are taking best places. They have floors. They can ask all the questions they want, etc., etc. So just few examples, but there are lots of more.
Yeah, it's okay. So Jean, alors, il sera pas dit que
j'ai compris. Je serai aussi bref que possible, mais je suis Jean Mérimanov, citoyen suisse indépendant. Je suis médiateur de profession. On a parlé au début de ces débats de cas qui m'ont paru extrêmement préoccupants et tragiques. Du côté de Mme Kolesina, elle a parlé d'un journaliste qui est emprisonné sans raison dans un pays qui est voisin. On a parlé, et ça c'est Mme Zaki, de journalistes qui avaient été assassinés. Il m'a semblé que dans ce débat, on les avait un petit peu oubliés. Il y a 40 ans, monsieur le modérateur, à l'initiative de la Croix-Rouge internationale et de la Suisse, nous avons introduit dans le droit international humanitaire des protections, des dispositions internationales pour protéger les journalistes. Est-ce qu'on ne pourrait pas imaginer, dans la mesure où la Suisse est encore, je crois, un des seuls pays neutres de la planète, qui défend du reste avec de plus en plus de difficultés sa neutralité, soit dit en passant, on en a eu un exemple tout à l'heure à propos de Schengen, c'est le système qui a voulu ça. Est-ce qu'il ne serait pas temps, Monsieur le Président, c'est une piste de réflexion et pas une question que je vous pose, est-ce qu'il ne serait pas temps de réfléchir à un mécanisme, parce qu'il y a des intérêts réciproques dans l'Ouest comme dans l'Est, à résoudre ces problèmes puisqu'ils arrivent des deux côtés. Est-ce qu'il n'y aurait pas un intérêt à prévoir un mécanisme international pour résoudre ces questions, pas nécessairement par l'échange? Il est vrai que ce mécanisme implique, pour être efficace, la confidentialité, et je reconnais que ce n'est pas nécessairement votre tasse de thé, si vous me permettez cette dernière impertinence. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Merci. Ce sera notre conclusion. Je ne crois pas qu'il y a ça appel de commentaires de la part de nos invités. So I think there is no... you wish to answer. And I will conclude... to answer you, Jean. Okay.
Juste une petite remarque, c'est justement, il y a quelques jours, c'est Sputnik qui a interviewé l'ambassadeur de Suisse en Russie, M. Yves Poissier, qui disait justement que les confrontations, les conflits, un jour, ça va se terminer. Donc il est temps de commencer à construire des ponts, et justement la Suisse pourrait être justement le pays qui pourrait aider dans cette régularisation des relations.
Merci. Oui, je pense que c'est une bonne question que tu soulèves. Il existe des initiatives. Il y a Reporters sans frontières qui a été créé pour ça, mais qui a elle-même aussi ses propres difficultés, parce qu'on a vu que même Reporters sans frontières pouvait avoir certains biais cognitifs, on va dire. Voilà. Bon, ça arrive à toutes les organisations, à toutes les ONG. Il y a aussi une autre initiative. Il y a la Fondation Hirondelle, qui est une fondation suisse dont l'initiative de création a été prise par la radio romande, très active en Afrique et qui fait un très bon travail. Il y a aussi une autre initiative qui s'appelle PEC Emblème, Presse Emblème Campaign, menée ici à Genève par journalistes suisses qui vise à protéger l'action des journalistes, notamment sur les terrains de guerre, etc. Puisque avant, le mot presse, ça protégeait, puis maintenant, ça devient une occasion pour leur tirer dessus, donc sur les champs de bataille. Donc, il y a une résolution de l'ONU qui a été votée pour mieux protéger les journalistes grâce à cette initiative. Cela dit, effectivement, on a toujours un peu un train de retard sur la protection, mais c'est vrai que la Suisse pourrait prendre un rôle plus proactif dans ce domaine, pour autant, effectivement, qu'elle sache encore, comme vous l'avez dit, respecter sa neutralité, ce qui n'est pas toujours le cas, ou de moins en moins le cas. En tout cas, j'aimerais remercier tout le monde.
One question.
Yes?
Don't you think that the situation you mentioned when the press card or the press badge identifying the journalist is now like more a target, that this is not only fault of the society, that this is a part of the fault of the media and journalists, that also, because of they discredited themselves, I'm sorry to say this, I heard lots of critics toward the government structures.
And to self-criticism.
Yeah, but this is not to criticize in my reply, but just to be objective. That probably this is the part of the problem which should be resolved by the media society as well, because people, I mean, just normal people, not like we are today together. I mean, those who have no connection to the media world, they trusted too much to the reports and news, because the, news blogs and reports became the part of their everyday life. And they thought that those sources are really reliable, but they were faked and so many times, like the situation with Iraq, like situation with Libya, Syria, North Africa, Arabic Spring, so-called, that something happened with them. And probably this is a part of a big problem.
Definitely.
I think you are right, and you are right to mention this kind of problem. It's also a discussion we have to have inside the media and the journalist community, because that's true. But anyway, it's time to conclude, and I wish to thank again all our participants, Mr. Kenny, Jean Musy, who were courageous enough to confront with Maria Zakharova, who is a tough speaker of the Russian Foreign Ministry, and also Miret for sure, and last but not least, Mrs. Zakharova and Mrs. Kolesina.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. And we have to go on with the discussion.